The great ceremonial hall of the Zephyrian flagship had been transformed for the wedding ceremony. Representatives from dozens of civilizations filled the vast space, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien diversity. Princess Lyrathes stood in her preparation chamber, wearing the traditional marriage robes of her people, but her mind was focused on the choice she was about to make. Commander Velthar entered with final reports from the intelligence networks. Princess Draxian. Fleet movements have accelerated. Our analysts believe they plan to attack immediately after the ceremony, expecting us to be distracted by celebration. How many ships? Over 300 confirmed, Princess. It appears they have committed the majority of their military forces to this offensive. Lyrathes nodded grimly. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine the fate of millions of people across multiple star systems. She made her way to the ceremonial hall, where Jake Martinez waited at the altar wearing the formal dress uniform of the human space service. He looked calm and confident, despite being surrounded by beings who could crush him without effort. As she walked down the long aisle between the assembled dignitaries, Lyrathes saw the faces of representatives from civilizations that had been watching this alliance with varying degrees of interest and concern. Some clearly hoped to see the Zephyrian Empire humiliated, while others seemed genuinely curious about what this unprecedented partnership might achieve. When she reached the altar, Jake offered her a slight bow of respect. The ceremony began with traditional Zephyrian rituals, followed by human customs that Amy Ross had carefully explained to the alien audience. But as the moment approached for her to speak the final vows that would make the marriage binding, Princess Lyrathes made a decision that surprised everyone present. "Before I complete these vows," she said, her voice carrying clearly throughout the vast hall, "I must be honest with everyone here about how this ceremony came to be." A murmur of confusion ran through the assembled dignitaries. Jake watched her with those steady eyes, showing no sign of concern or surprise. When Captain Martinez first proposed marriage as a symbol of alliance between our peoples, I accepted his offer not out of respect or genuine interest in partnership, but because I thought it would be amusing to humiliate his species before the galaxy. The murmur became gasps of shock from many of the alien representatives. Several Zephyrian nobles looked horrified at this public admission. I believed humans were primitive beings who could be easily mocked and dismissed. I planned to reveal this marriage as a jest after the ceremony, demonstrating to all of you that humans were naive fools unworthy of serious consideration. She turned to face Jake directly. But my investigation into human nature and capabilities has revealed something I did not expect. I discovered that I was the fool, not because I underestimated human technology or military strength, but because I failed to recognize the character of the man standing beside me. Jake's expression remained calm, but she thought she saw something that might have been approval in his eyes. Captain Martinez is not just any human officer. He is Jake Martinez, the Terran Ghost, whose tactical innovations have revolutionized military thinking across known space. His reputation for both strategic brilliance and moral integrity has spread throughout the galaxy. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Many of your civilizations have military analyses of his methods in your intelligence databases. Some of you have changed your expansion plans after encounters with forces under his command. The hall was completely silent now, every being focused on her words. But more importantly, I have learned that he and his delegation knew about my original intentions from the beginning. They chose to proceed with these negotiations anyway, believing that understanding between civilizations was more important than temporary embarrassment. She faced the audience again. This man walked willingly into what could have been a trap, risking his reputation and his life because he believed that building bridges between species was worth any personal cost. Princess Lyrathess took Jake's hands in hers, a gesture that sealed the marriage under both human and Zephyrian law. Today I choose to complete these vows not as a jest or a political maneuver, but as a genuine partnership with someone whose character and capabilities I have come to respect. Deeply, Jake spoke for the first time during the ceremony. Princess Lyrathess, I accept this marriage and the responsibilities it represents. I promise that humans will stand with the Zephyrian people through any challenge, will share our knowledge and skills freely, and will never surrender in defense of those we call allies. He turned to address the assembled representatives. But I also give warning to any who would threaten the innocent or seek to profit from conflict. Humans have earned our reputation among the stars, and those who mistake our desire for peace as weakness will discover why we are respected throughout known space. The ceremony concluded with both human and Zephyrian traditions, creating a marriage that was legally binding under the laws of both civilizations. As the assembled dignitaries began offering congratulations, Commander Velthar approached with urgent news. Princess Captain, we have just received word that the Draxian fleet has begun its attack on our border systems. The first engagement started 20 minutes ago. Jake immediately activated his communication device. Admiral Martinez, this is Captain Martinez. Request immediate deployment of Task Force 7 to support Zephyrian defense operations. His sister's voice came through, clearly. Task Force 7 is already en route, Jake. We have been monitoring the situation and anticipated this development. Lyrathess looked at him in amazement. You prepared for this? Humans always prepare for multiple possibilities, Princess. We hoped for peace but planned for conflict. Over the following hours, reports arrived from the battle zones. The Draxian attack had indeed been massive and well coordinated, but they had not anticipated human involvement. The first engagement report was typical of what followed. Draxian forces expecting to overwhelm a Zephyrian patrol group instead found themselves facing a combined fleet using tactics they had never encountered. Human ships appeared from nowhere, the Draxian commander reported before his capture. Their stealth capabilities are beyond anything in our databases. They coordinated with Zephyrian forces using strategies that turned our numerical advantage into a liability. Within 6 hours, the Draxian offensive had collapsed completely. Their fleet commanders found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn by the combination of Zephyrian technology and human tactical innovation. But the real surprise came when Jake personally led the negotiation with captured Draxian officers. Instead of demanding punishment or reparations, he offered them a choice. You can continue this conflict and face the combined forces of the Human-Zephyrian Alliance, he told the Draxian fleet commander, or you can help us build a different kind of future in this region of space. The Draxian commander, a veteran warrior named General Krexthor, studied Jake with the respect one professional gives another. What kind of future? One where conflicts are resolved through negotiation, rather than warfare, where different civilizations work together to explore the galaxy rather than fight over territory, where everyone benefits from cooperation. 3 days later, the Draxian hegemony signed a peace treaty that not only ended their expansion campaign, but brought them into a new alliance structure based on mutual benefit rather than conquest, Princess. Lyrathes stood with her new husband on the observation deck of their flagship, watching as former enemies worked together to repair damaged ships and establish new trade agreements. "Is this how humans always resolve conflicts?" she asked. "When possible," Jake replied. "We have learned that former enemies often make the strongest allies because they understand the cost of conflict better than anyone." She studied the man who had become both her husband and a symbol of what cooperation between civilizations could achieve. "What happens now? Now we build something new, Princess. Humans and Zephyrians working together, probably making mistakes and learning from them, but always moving forward." He gestured toward the stars beyond the viewport. "The galaxy is vast, and there are countless civilizations we have not yet met. Some will be friendly, others hostile, but all will be opportunities to learn and grow." Princess Lyrathes realized that her marriage to Jake Martinez had become something far more significant than either of them had originally envisioned. It was a symbol of how understanding could triumph over prejudice, how genuine partnership could transform apparent weakness into strength, and how the most important decisions in life often came disguised as something else entirely. The jest that had begun as an attempt to humiliate had become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation, with the quiet human captain and the proud alien princess as its unlikely architects, as reports continued to arrive of peaceful resolutions to conflicts throughout the region. Lyrathes understood that she had not just married a military legend, she had partnered with someone who represented the best of what intelligent beings could become when they chose cooperation over conflict. The future stretched before them, full of challenges and opportunities that neither humans nor Zephyrians could face alone, but which their combined strengths might overcome together. Princess Lyrathes found herself pacing the length of her private chambers as dawn approached, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. In 3 days, she would either stand before representatives of dozens of civilizations and marry Jake Martinez, or she would reveal her jest and potentially insult the most dangerous military mind in human space. The door chimed, and Commander Velthar entered with his morning briefing, but his expression was more troubled than usual. "Princess, we have received a priority communication from the Imperial Council. They are demanding a full strategic assessment of human capabilities before the wedding ceremony. What have you told them?" "The truth, Princess. That we severely underestimated human military and technological capabilities, and that this alliance may be more crucial than we initially believed." Velthar activated a holographic display showing current galactic political alignments. "The Council is particularly concerned about the Draxian hegemony's recent expansion. If humans are as capable as our intelligence suggests, their alliance could tip the balance of power in our favor." Lyrathes studied the star charts, seeing the complex web of alliances and tensions that defined their region of space. The Draxians had been growing more aggressive, testing Zephyrian defenses and expanding into systems claimed by smaller civilizations. "What does the Council recommend?" "They want you to proceed with the marriage, Princess. But they want it to be a genuine alliance, not a diplomatic game." The irony was not lost on her. Her father and the Imperial Council now wanted exactly what Jake Martinez had proposed from the beginning: a real partnership between their civilizations. Later that morning, she met with Jake for what she had told him would be a discussion of ceremony details. Instead, she found herself studying the man who had become the center of a galactic political shift. They walked together through the ship's botanical gardens, a vast space filled with plants from 100 worlds. Jake seemed genuinely interested in the alien flora, asking thoughtful questions about adaptation and cultivation techniques. "Captain," she said as they paused beside a fountain surrounded by crystalline flowers from her home world. Tell me honestly, what do you hope to achieve from this marriage? Jake was quiet for a moment, watching the play of light through the crystal petals. I hope to build understanding between our peoples, Your Highness. Humans have learned that most conflicts come from fear and misunderstanding rather than genuine incompatibility. And if you discovered that your bride had initially accepted your proposal for less than honorable reasons, he met her eyes with that steady gaze she was learning to recognize. Princess, humans have a saying, judge people by their actions, not their intentions. Whatever your reasons were, you are here now, having these conversations with me. That suggests your thinking may have evolved. She felt a flutter of something that might have been relief. You suspected my original motivations? I suspected you underestimated humans and saw an opportunity to demonstrate that publicly. But I also suspected you were intelligent enough to learn from new information. They continued walking, and Jake began sharing stories about human exploration and discovery. He told her about the first humans to leave their solar system, knowing they might never see home again but driven by curiosity about what lay beyond the stars. We have always been explorers, Princess. Not because we are brave, but because we cannot resist the question of what lies beyond the next horizon, even when that exploration is dangerous, especially then. Humans learn the most about ourselves when we face challenges that seem impossible. That afternoon, Lyra Thess met with Dr. Ben Carter to discuss human scientific philosophy. The conversation revealed yet another layer of human thinking that impressed her. Your people seem to approach every problem as if it can be solved, she observed. Because it usually can be, Carter replied. Maybe not in the way we first imagined, and maybe not quickly, but humans have learned that most limitations exist in our thinking rather than in reality. He showed her examples of human scientific breakthroughs, discoveries that had come from refusing to accept conventional wisdom about what was possible. When we discovered faster-than-light travel, it was not because we found new physics. We found new ways to think about existing physics. And Captain Martinez applies this same thinking to military problems. Jake applies it to all problems, Carter corrected. That is why he is so effective. He refuses to accept that any situation is hopeless. That evening, Lisa Harper requested a private meeting with the princess. The diplomat arrived with a serious expression and a request that surprised Lyra Thess. Your Highness, I need to discuss something that may affect your decision about this marriage. What do you mean? We know about your original intentions, Princess. We have known from the beginning, Lyra Thess felt her breath catch. All of you knew. Yes. Human intelligence capabilities are more advanced than we initially revealed. We knew this was intended as a humiliation, but we chose to proceed anyway. Why, Lisa activated a small holographic projector. Because we believe that understanding between civilizations is more important than temporary embarrassment. And because Jake convinced us that you would eventually see past your initial assumptions, the hologram showed scenes from human history. Moments when enemies had become allies, when conflicts had been resolved through patience and genuine communication. Humans have learned that today's enemy can become tomorrow's greatest ally if you approach them with respect and genuine interest in understanding their perspective, even when they initially show you none. Especially then, Lisa said, Jake has built his reputation on turning adversaries into partners. He saw this as just another version of that challenge. The next morning brought an urgent communication from Emperor Zarthul. Princess Lyrathes stood before the secure terminal in her private intelligence chamber, her hands trembling slightly as she accessed the most classified human military databases. The diplomatic protocols allowed her this access as part of standard alliance negotiations. But what she was discovering made her question everything she thought she knew about her intended groom. The first file that opened contained service records that made her breath catch. Captain Jake Martinez was not just any human officer, he was the Jake Martinez, a name that appeared in virtually every major human military engagement of the past 2 decades. She read with growing amazement about the Battle of Kepler 442, but this time with full tactical analysis. The engagement had not been a desperate defense by damaged ships. It had been a masterpiece of strategic thinking that military academies across human space now studied as the perfect example of victory through superior planning and unshakable determination. The enemy force had outnumbered Martinez 15-1, with better ships and more advanced weapons. Standard military doctrine would have called for immediate retreat. Instead, Martinez had turned the system's asteroid field into the galaxy's most complex trap, using gravity wells and orbital mechanics to force the attacking fleet into a series of engagements where numbers meant nothing. But what made her hands shake was the cost analysis. Human casualties, 3%. Enemy casualties, 68% destroyed, 32% captured or surrendered. The battle had ended with Martinez accepting the surrender of the enemy commander and offering medical aid to wounded survivors. She opened another file and found herself reading about the Titan Station incident. This had not been a simple pirate raid, but a coordinated attack by a mercenary company hired by a rival human faction to destroy critical infrastructure. Martinez had not just defended the station, he had tracked down the people who hired the mercenaries and convinced them to switch sides through a combination of military pressure and diplomatic negotiation. The more she read, the more she realized that Jake Martinez was not just a military officer, but a living legend among humans. His tactical innovations had revolutionized human space warfare, but more importantly, his approach to conflict resolution had helped end 3 major civil wars through negotiation rather than continued fighting. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message from her father, Emperor Zarthul. She accepted the communication, and his holographic image appeared in the chamber daughter. The Emperor said without preamble, "I have been receiving disturbing reports about this human alliance. My intelligence advisors suggest we may have underestimated their capabilities. What have you learned, Father? Human space is not the small collection of primitive worlds we believed. They control over 200 systems and maintain one of the most effective military forces in this part of the galaxy. More troubling? They appear to have been studying us for much longer than we have been studying them." Lyrathes felt a chill run through her. "What do you mean?" "Their ship, this venture, has been observing our border systems for months. We never detected it because their stealth technology is superior to ours. They knew exactly what they were walking into when they requested this meeting. The faster." Emperor's expression grew more serious. "Daughter, this marriage you have agreed to may be more important than either of us realized. If humans are as capable as these reports suggest, we need them as allies rather than enemies." After her father's communication ended, Lyrathes returned to the human files with new urgency. She accessed historical records and found herself reading about human civilization with growing amazement. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them in a dozen different ways. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, and predators that outweighed them by tons had all failed to stop human expansion. When they finally reached space, they had brought that same stubborn refusal to accept defeat. She read about the first human colony ships, crewed vessels that took decades to reach nearby star systems. Many failed, but the humans kept building more and sending them out. They had spread across the galaxy not through superior technology, but through sheer determination. The cultural files revealed even more. Human art, music, and literature all centered around themes of overcoming impossible challenges. Their greatest heroes were people who had faced hopeless situations and found ways to win anyway. Stories of individuals who had sacrificed everything to save others, scientists who had worked for decades on problems everyone else had given up on, explorers who had ventured into dangerous, unknown regions simply to learn what was there. But the file that truly shook her was labeled The Terran Ghost, Strategic Analysis. Opening it revealed military reports from a dozen different species, all trying to understand how one human officer had achieved so many impossible victories. Report from the Altarian Republic was particularly detailed. Their military analysts had studied every battle Martinez had fought, trying to identify weaknesses in his methods. Their conclusion was sobering. Captain Martinez represents the ultimate expression of human military philosophy. He combines strategic brilliance with tactical flexibility and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Recommendation: avoid direct confrontation at all costs. Similar reports from other species painted the same picture. Martinez was not just respected among humans. He was feared and admired throughout known space. Several civilizations had changed their expansion plans after encounters with forces under his command. The most revealing document was a psychological profile prepared by the Centauri Alliance. Subject demonstrates the classic human paradox: genuine concern for enemy casualties combined with ruthless effectiveness in achieving objectives. Will negotiate settlement rather than pursue total victory, but will fight to complete destruction. If negotiations fail, motivation appears to be protection of others rather than personal advancement. Lyrathes closed the files and walked to her viewport, staring out at the human ship. The venture no longer looked primitive to her educated eyes. She could see the subtle design elements that marked advanced stealth technology, the carefully concealed weapon systems, the elegant efficiency of human engineering. A request for audience interrupted her thoughts. Amy Ross had asked to meet, saying she had information about human marriage customs that the princess should understand. Before the ceremony, when Amy arrived, she carried a different kind of recording device. Your Highness, I wanted to share something with you about Jake specifically, things that are not in official records. The device projected a series of personal messages from people throughout human space. Lyrathes listened as ordinary humans. Talked about Jake Martinez? Not as a military legend, but as a person? Jake saved my daughter when pirates attacked our transport, said an elderly woman. He could have left us behind to save his own ship, but he risked everything to protect civilians he had never met. When I was captured by slavers, Jake led the rescue mission personally, said a young man. He could have sent subordinates, but he said no one under his command should face dangers he would not face himself. The messages continued, dozens of them, all telling variations of the same story. Jake Martinez had built his reputation not just through tactical brilliance, but through consistent actions that put others before himself. Why are you showing me this? Lyrathes asked. Amy looked at her directly. Because I think you deserve to. Know who you are marrying, Your Highness. Jake volunteered for this mission knowing it might be a trap. He came anyway because he believed that understanding between our species was worth the risk. You know why I accepted his proposal. Amy nodded. We all knew it was meant as a joke. Jake knew too. But he also knows that sometimes the best outcomes come from the most unexpected beginnings. That evening, Commander Velthar brought his final intelligence summary. Princess, I must inform you that human military doctrine is based on principles that make them extremely dangerous opponents. They study every species they encounter, looking for weaknesses but also for potential common ground. What do you mean? They fight only when necessary, but when they fight to win completely. However, they prefer to turn enemies into allies whenever possible. Captain Martinez embodies this approach perfectly. Velthar activated a tactical display. If humans wanted to attack the Empire, they could inflict severe damage before we could respond effectively. Their stealth capabilities and strategic thinking give them enormous advantages. But they chose diplomacy instead. Yes, Princess. They chose to risk their greatest military asset on a diplomatic mission that could easily have been a trap. This suggests they genuinely want peaceful relations with us. As Lyrathes prepared for sleep that night, she realized her understanding of the situation had completely changed. Jake Martinez was not a primitive fool she could humiliate. He was one of the most respected military minds in known space, a man whose reputation for both tactical brilliance and moral integrity had spread throughout the galaxy. Her jest had accidentally secured an alliance with someone whose friendship could transform the balance of power in this part of space. But more than that, she was beginning to realize that she was genuinely impressed by the quiet human who had walked calmly into what could have been a trap, simply because he thought building bridges be too. The news of Princess Lyrathes accepting a marriage proposal from a human spread across the Zephyrian Empire like wildfire. Within hours, communication networks buzzed with speculation, gossip, and barely concealed outrage from noble families, who had hoped to arrange their own alliances with the royal house. 3 days after the reception, Lyrathes sat in her private study reviewing intelligence reports that Commander Velthar had compiled about her intended groom. What she read made her pause and reconsider her assumptions about human capabilities. Captain Jake Martinez, age 42, graduated top of his class from the Terran Naval Academy, she read aloud to herself. Served with distinction in the outer Colony Defense Force, promoted rapidly through the ranks. The next section made her sit up straighter. Battle of Kepler, 442. Captain Martinez, commanding 3 damaged frigates, held defensive position against superior force for 21 days, allowing evacuation of civilian population. Casualties: human forces 12%, enemy forces 68%. She scrolled through more entries, each one adding detail to a picture that was becoming increasingly complex. Martinez had been involved in 17 major engagements over 15 years, and in every case his forces had achieved objectives that military analysts had considered impossible. Her door chimed and Amy Ross entered, carrying a small bag of human artifacts. The cultural attaché had requested this meeting to discuss traditions for the upcoming ceremony. Dr. Ross, Lyrathes said, gesturing to a chair, please tell me more about Captain Martinez. What kind of man is he among your people? Amy smiled and set down her bag. Jake is what we call a quiet hero, Your Highness. He does what needs to be done without seeking glory or recognition. Many people know his name, but few know the full extent of what he has accomplished. And what has he accomplished? Amy opened her bag and removed a small holographic projector. Perhaps it would be easier to show you some of our history, and you will understand better. The device activated, filling the space between them with images of Earth. Lyra watched as scenes played out showing humans in various situations. Building cities, exploring dangerous territories, facing natural disasters, and always working together to overcome challenges. This is how humans see the universe, Amy explained. We believe that any problem can be solved if you refuse to give up and work together. Jake embodies this philosophy more than most. The hologram showed a space battle, with human ships moving in patterns that seemed chaotic, but gradually revealed themselves as brilliant tactical maneuvers. This is the Battle of Titan Station. Jake commanded the defense with only 6 ships against a pirate fleet of 30 vessels. Lyra watched as the smaller human force used the asteroid field around Titan to create ambushes and traps, turning the pirates' superior numbers into a disadvantage. He won this battle. Not just one, Amy said. He captured the entire pirate fleet intact and turned most of them into allies. That is very typical of Jake's approach to problems. Over the following days, similar conversations were happening throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Dr. Ben Carter had begun sharing human scientific achievements with curious alien researchers, while Lisa Harper discussed human diplomatic philosophy with Zephyrian political theorists. Dr. Carter found himself in the science laboratory section, answering increasingly complex questions from Dr. Yethmore, the fleet's chief researcher. "Your mathematics are crude but effective," the alien scientist admitted. "How did humans develop faster-than-light travel with such primitive computational methods?" "We learned to think differently about the problems," Carter replied. "When conventional mathematics did not work, we created new approaches. Human scientists have always believed that if something seems impossible, you probably just have not found the right way to think about it yet." He pulled up displays showing human technological development. "We went from flying in primitive aircraft to reaching other star systems in less than 200 years. Most of that progress happened because we refused to accept that anything was impossible." Dr. Yethmore studied the progression with growing interest. "Your species advanced very quickly for beings with such short lifespans. Most civilizations take millennia to achieve interstellar capability." "Perhaps that is exactly why we advanced quickly," Carter suggested. "Humans know we do not have forever, so we do not waste time assuming something cannot be done." Meanwhile, Lisa Harper was having equally revealing conversations with Commander Velthar about human military philosophy. "Your Captain Martinez interests me," the Zephyrian officer admitted. "His tactical approaches are unlike anything in our military databases." "Where did he learn such methods?" "Jake learned by doing," Lisa replied. "Human military tradition emphasizes adaptability over rigid doctrine. We train our officers to think creatively when facing unexpected situations. But surely he had teachers, mentors who showed him these techniques." Lisa shook her head. "Jake developed most of his methods himself, during actual combat situations. That is very human. We often do our best learning when the stakes are highest." She accessed her personal files and showed Velthar recordings from human military academies. "We teach our officers that every battle is different. Every enemy requires a new approach. Jake took those lessons further than most." The recording showed young human officers practicing scenarios where they were always outnumbered and outgunned, forced to win through cleverness rather than superior firepower. "This is how you train all your military leaders?" Velthar asked, clearly disturbed by what he was seeing. "This is how we train everyone," Lisa corrected. "Human children learn these same principles in school. We call it problem solving." Back in her private chambers, Princess Lyra Thess was receiving increasingly detailed reports about human civilization that painted a picture very different from her initial assumptions, Princess, Commander Velthar said during their evening briefing. I must report some concerning discoveries about human military capabilities, such as their ship, the Venture, is not the primitive vessel we initially believed. Our deep scans have revealed technology that is actually more advanced than ours in several key areas. Their stealth systems, for example, are far superior to anything in the Empire. Lyra Thess frowned. How is that possible? Human engineering philosophy is different from ours, Princess. Where we focus on elegance and beauty, they focus on effectiveness and adaptability. Their ship looks crude because they designed it to be underestimated. The commander activated a holographic display showing the Venture's true specifications. This vessel could penetrate our defenses undetected and strike at the heart of our fleet before we knew they were there. And Captain Martinez commands this ship. Yes, Princess. But there is more. I have been researching his reputation among humans, and what I found is disturbing. Among their military, he is known as the Terran Ghost. His tactical innovations are studied throughout human space. Lyra Thess studied the data, feeling a growing unease about her intended jest. What else have you learned? Human space is larger than we initially estimated, Princess. They control more systems than they admitted, and their military is far more capable than they led us to believe. This diplomatic mission may not be the desperate plea for alliance we assumed. That evening, Lyra Thess requested a private dinner, with Captain Martinez ostensibly to discuss wedding arrangements but actually to probe deeper into his background. They dined in her smaller receiving room, a space that was still vast by human standards but intimate compared to the great halls of the ship. Martinez seemed completely at ease, despite being alone with someone who could have him killed with a word. Captain, she said as they ate, tell me about your career. What made you choose military service? Martinez considered the question while cutting his food with unfamiliar utensils. I wanted to protect people who could not protect themselves. Humans have always faced threats from the unknown, and someone needs to stand between danger and the innocent. And you have done this successfully. I have been fortunate to serve with good people and face challenges that taught me valuable lessons. She noticed that he deflected credit away from himself while acknowledging the importance of his work. This was not the behavior of someone seeking to impress or intimidate. What challenges taught you the most? Martinez was quiet for a moment. There was a time when pirates attacked a colony world called Haven. The colonists were mostly families, people who just wanted to build something peaceful far from the conflicts of the inner systems. What happened? The pirates expected easy victory against untrained civilians, but the colonists had something the pirates did not understand. They had reasons to fight that went beyond simple survival. They were protecting their children, their homes, their dreams. Lyra Thess found herself leaning forward, drawn into the story despite herself. I commanded the defense. But the real heroes were ordinary people who refused to surrender. A farmer named Pete Williams held a crucial position for 6 hours against overwhelming odds. A teacher called Mary Johnson organized the evacuation of children while under fire. They taught me that humans fight hardest when they fight for others. And, you won this battle. We all won, Martinez corrected. The pirates learned that attacking human colonies was more costly than they expected, many of them. The massive Zephyrian flagship gleamed like a jewel against the black of space. Its crystal towers and flowing metal curves designed to inspire awe in lesser species. Princess Lyra stood on the observation deck of her personal quarters, watching the approaching human vessel with barely concealed amusement. The ship they called Venture looked like a crude metal box compared to the elegant beauty of Zephyrian engineering. She turned away from the viewport and walked to her communication console, her 6-foot frame moving with the natural grace of her species. Her skin shimmered with the pale blue tint that marked royal blood, and her elongated features held the kind of sharp intelligence that had made her father's most trusted advisor by age 30. "Commander Velthar," she spoke into the device. Are our guests ready for the reception?" The voice that answered carried a note of concern. "Princess, I must again express my reservations about this meeting. The humans may be primitive, but intelligence suggests they are not as helpless as they appear," Lyra laughed, a sound like crystal bells. "You worry too much, old friend. What could these newcomers possibly do to threaten an empire that spans 1,000 worlds? They have barely left their home system, and already they think they can negotiate with us as equals." She moved to her wardrobe and selected a ceremonial gown that would emphasize her status. The flowing fabric seemed to move on its own, shifting colors as it caught the light. Today would be entertaining, she decided. These humans would provide excellent amusement for the court. An hour later, the human delegation was escorted into the grand reception hall. Lyra watched from her elevated throne as they entered, noting their obvious discomfort with the vast space and alien architecture. The hall could hold 10,000 beings, its ceiling lost in swirling clouds of luminescent gas. Holographic displays showed the glory of the Zephyrian Empire, star maps highlighting their countless conquests and allied worlds. The human leader stepped forward, and she studied him with interest. Captain Jake Martinez appeared to be in his early 40s, with dark hair showing traces of gray and eyes that seemed to take in everything around him without showing fear or wonder. He wore a simple blue uniform that looked almost childish compared to the elaborate dress of the Zephyrian nobles. Behind him came his small team. Lisa Harper, their diplomat, was a tall woman with red hair who kept glancing around the hall with what looked like professional curiosity rather than intimidation. Dr. Ben Carter, their scientist, carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone used to dealing with complex problems. Amy Ross, their cultural attaché, seemed to be taking mental notes of everything she saw. "Welcome, humans," Lyra said, her voice carrying easily across the vast space thanks to the hall's acoustics. "We greet you in the name of the Zephyrian Empire and all its allied worlds." Captain Martinez stepped forward and gave a slight bow. "Your Highness, we come in peace and friendship, hoping to establish good relations between our peoples." The princess noticed that his voice was steady and his manner respectful, but not servile. Interesting. Most species showed more obvious signs of being overwhelmed by their first encounter with Zephyrian power. "Tell us, Captain," she said, settling back in her throne. "What does your small world hope to gain from an alliance with an empire such as ours?" "We hope to learn from each other," Martinez replied. "Humans have always believed that different perspectives make everyone stronger. We offer our friendship and whatever knowledge or skills we possess." A murmur of barely suppressed laughter ran through the assembled Zephyrian nobles. The idea that humans could offer anything of value to their advanced civilization struck them as absurd. Lyra decided to test this human's composure. "And what exactly do humans consider their greatest achievements?" Captain Martinez seemed to consider the question seriously. "We learn to work together despite our differences. We explored dangerous places because we were curious about what we might find. We never gave up when things looked impossible." "How quaint," the princess said, and the court laughed openly now. "Your species certainly has confidence, even if it seems misplaced." Dr. Carter stepped forward slightly. "Your Highness, if I may, we have brought some examples of human art, music, and literature. Perhaps cultural exchange might be a good place to start." "Of course," Lyrathess said graciously. "We always enjoy seeing how primitive cultures express themselves." The insult was deliberate and obvious, but the humans showed no visible reaction. This surprised her. Most species either became angry or showed obvious hurt when faced with such dismissal. Amy Ross opened a small case and removed what appeared to be a simple wooden flute. "This instrument is over 1,000 years old," she said. "It belonged to a human who lived in a time when our people faced great hardship, but they created beauty anyway." She played a simple melody, clear and haunting in the vast hall. Despite herself, Lyrathess found the music oddly moving. It spoke of longing and hope in a way that touched something unexpected in her mind. When the music ended, Captain Martinez spoke again. "Your Highness, among my people, when we wish to form a strong alliance, we sometimes seal it with marriage between families. Would you do me the honor of considering a union between us as a symbol of friendship between our worlds?" The hall fell completely silent. Then the silence broke as laughter erupted from every corner of the great space. Zephyrian nobles nearly fell from their seats as they laughed at the absurdity of this primitive alien proposing marriage to their princess. Lyrathess felt a surge of delighted malice. Here was an opportunity too perfect to miss. This foolish human had just given her the chance to humiliate his entire species in front of representatives from dozens of worlds. "Captain Martinez," she said, rising from her throne with theatrical grace, "your proposal is so unexpected, so bold, that I find myself quite taken with it. Yes, I accept." The laughter stopped, as if cut with a blade. The Zephyrian nobles stared in shock while the human delegation exchanged quick glances. Commander Velthar stepped forward from his position near the throne. "Princess, perhaps this decision requires more consideration." "Nonsense," Lyrathess said, warming to her game. "The captain has made a romantic gesture that speaks to his people's innocent charm. How could I refuse such a heartfelt offer?" She descended from her throne and approached Martinez, noting that he showed no sign of backing down despite being surrounded by beings who could crush him without effort. "We shall have a proper ceremony, with all the traditions of both our peoples. The galaxy will witness this historic union." Martinez met her gaze steadily. "I am honored by your acceptance, Your Highness." Lisa Harper cleared her throat carefully. "If I may, Your Highness, we should probably discuss the practical arrangements for such a ceremony." "Of course," the princess said, still enjoying her private joke. "Commander Velthar will work with your people to arrange everything properly. We shall spare no expense in celebrating this alliance." As the formal reception continued, Lyrathess found herself studying her intended groom more carefully. He participated in the various ceremonies and discussions with quiet competence, never seeming overwhelmed by the alien customs or technology around him. When other Zephyrian nobles made barely concealed jokes about human primitiveness, he either ignored them completely or responded with what seemed like genuine curiosity about Zephyrian culture by the time the humans were escorted to their guest quarters. She was beginning to wonder if her joke might prove more interesting than she had expected. The man seemed utterly unperturbed by the situation, almost as if he had expected something like this to happen. That night, as she prepared for sleep in her vast chambers, Commander Velthar requested a private audience. "Princess," he said, his expression grave, "I have been reviewing our intelligence files on the human delegation. There are some disturbing gaps in our knowledge about Captain Martinez specifically." "What do you mean?" she asked, suddenly alert. "Our initial scans identified him as a simple military officer, but there are references in their databases that suggest he may be more significant than we realized. I recommend we conduct a more thorough investigation before proceeding with this marriage ceremony." Lyrathess waved dismissively. "You worry too much, old friend. What could one human possibly be hiding that would matter to us?" But as she lay in her bed later, staring up at the shifting patterns of light on her ceiling, she found herself wondering about the quiet confidence in those dark human eyes. Perhaps it would be worth learning more about Captain Jake Martinez before she revealed. "Resto de Galaxy."